Hello, and welcome to Predictions 2022 Part 4. Today, we are going to be meeting some empowered women leaders, and specifically women leaders who are in our Circle Strategies family. So we are very excited to have you. Thank you for joining. And today we need to applaud women's accomplishments, not because of their gender, but because of the value that they bring to the table. And today we have two fantastic women that I'm honored to work with, and I'm honored to be in their presence today because they have provided so much opportunity and so much growth, and we're very happy to have you today. So thank you and welcome. I'm here with Angela Edgewords. Angela is the co-founder of Pixi. Pixi is a software solution that helps employers with recruiting. Ilyana Rojas is the founder of Be Live, and Ilyana provides leadership and development coaching, not only for her clients, but also for clients at Circle Strategies. So welcome. Thank you very much for participating today. It's great to have you. I'd like to... it's great. I'd like to start off with a little bit about each of you. And so, Angela, I would like to hear a little bit about this recent award that you have received.
Certainly. So on my birthday, actually, there's an organization that is US based and focuses on Latinx founders. And the whole mission and focus is to help the wealth gap, diminish the wealth gap in the Hispanic community. And through that, they identified 100 startup founders that are up and coming. Two stipulations: they've raised less than $1 million in capital, and also that their companies or startups are US based. And on my birthday, I was told that I made part of that list. And it was very, very, gratifying. We work hard, and it's just amazing to have other people acknowledge your work.
Congratulations. That must feel so great and such an honor because you have worked really hard. You and your husband have worked really hard at Pixi, and you're gaining a lot of traction. So that's fantastic. Ilyana has recently published a book, which I have learned along with others. I didn't know that before. So that's great. And your book is Extraordinary Latinas, Powerful Voices of Courage and Empowerment. And what I wanted to hear from you, which I think will be very valuable, is what brought you to writing a book about other women who have also done great things in the world.
Thank you, Cliff. I'm just so excited to be here, and congratulations, Angela. I was thrilled to see that award, so congratulations. Really, the book started because I believed most of my life that I'm not meant to write. I'm a chemical engineer, so everything for me has to do more with processes and numbers, and writing was definitely not my thing. And that, in a way, was a limiting belief, was limiting me from doing several things. And as a coach, one day it just became an aha moment to say, I can't keep helping my clients overcome their limiting beliefs and what's stopping them to become extraordinary. And I'm not doing it right by keeping that belief about not being able to write. So I decided last year that I was going to overcome that by writing this book and using it as a platform to elevate the voices of 11 other incredible Latinas who I work with, who have extraordinary stories to share. And I knew that their voices were not as amplified as they should be. So it was sort of like what's the phrase, like matar dos pájaros de un tiro, right? Like
Yeah.
hitting
Those two birds with
a
one
bird.
stone.
Kill,
Exactly.
yes. Kill it.
And so on the one hand, it helped me overcome my fear of writing, and on the other hand, continue to live in my under my mission of being able to elevate other incredible Latinas voices. So very excited about that, and we were able to hit an Amazon bestseller about 2 days after we released it. So yay.
Yes, that's fantastic.
Excellent. So, Ilyana, how did you identify the 11 women that you wanted to write about?
That was hard because I have like a list of more than 11, obviously. So it was very hard to narrow it down, but I wanted to make sure that each of the stories were tapped into three specific things from different points of view, so that the audience and the reader would get, there was a little bit of everything for everyone, so that, it doesn't matter who you are, you would resonate with the story of at least one of the Latinas. So there was a strategic or a process component behind selecting the women.
That's great. Excellent. Well, best of luck on the future of the book and maybe some future writing from you. So, about 10 years ago, I came across some information about taking care of yourself. And for so many years, you raise a family and work really, really hard, and you put a lot of yourself aside. And learning how to be mindful and to live purposefully was brought to my attention and something that I should focus on. And I did that. And I've been doing that for quite some time now, and it's been very, very helpful. But when you both look back on your journey to your successes, there are three phases, that being one of them: learning to live purposefully and mindfully, starting to live genuinely in your life, that one can truly call your own, and then discovering meaning or purpose and unity in your life. Of those three phrases about your journey, is one or all or something that resonates with you the most? And if you could share with us why. Ilyana, let's hear from you.
Of course. Well, actually, for me, this topic is critically important. It's based on everything that I do. It touches on everything that I do, and I think tapping into our purpose, no matter where you are and what part of the journey in your life you are, it's really important. And especially because I think every time that we start something new in our lives, whatever it is, personally, professionally, there's always this drive, there's always this powerful reason why it's important at that moment in time, right? And we don't realize that taps into our purpose, but it definitely does, and that's why we're excited with it. But then as time goes by, what I see ends up happening is that we get so immersed in the how, in checking the boxes, in making sure the tasks are accomplished. If we're in a new role now, we're like deep into trying to get business results. If we're starting a new business, then we start getting deep into trying to grow the business and making it work and paying the bills. If you're in a new relationship, there comes a point that now you're like checking the box of whatever that means, right? And in that journey, we end up losing or we end up forgetting why we started it in the first place. So it sort of goes like this, up and down, and that's why it becomes so important, at least for me, to keep reconnecting and creating these pauses, so that we remember why we got into this, whatever it is that we are doing in our journey, so that we can then get fueled back into something that's meaningful, and that we can jump out of bed every day and say, yes, I'm excited. And no matter how bad the day or how many challenges or how many barriers, that why, that purpose is enough to be able to fuel us and drives us forward. And having learned that continuously in a lot of different moments throughout my life, when I've woken myself up and said, I don't want to continue on like doing whatever I am, like I can't find the reason why, resetting into my purpose and reconnecting with my purpose has definitely been done a significant difference in getting me back on getting that energy that's required to be able to continue on and creating positive impact. So this is, to me, it's critically important. It's embedded in the work that now I do as a coach, and in helping, no matter if it's leadership, if it's executive coaching, if it's whatever type of coaching or consulting that I do, helping my clients reconnect with their purpose and how it's whatever they're doing is meaningful to their lives and to the impact that they want to create, because I've lived it, again and again through my own life.
And do you have a trigger or something that you turn to to help you recognize that you're, falling down that path of just checking everything off and not allowing you to recognize your purpose or your meaning?
Yes, now I do. I did not before, but now I do. I have two things that I've now embedded into my practices, right? One is every Friday, I sort of look back at the week and I check myself, like, how was this week? Not from did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, but from how am I? Like, was I happy this week? Was I like just felt like I was running like crazy and just could not get everything that I wanted done? Like, how am I? And if I realized that for the full week, it was just like a whirlwind of, I couldn't even remember where I am, then that's a red flag. That probably I was checking the box and not really being attuned to things that are very important to me. And the second one is, because again, time gets the best of all of us. Every quarter, I intentionally take a day off to relook at what did I accomplish in the quarter, how did I feel is aligned with my mission, with my purpose, which now I have written down, and I do have like in front of me, and I'm able to reconnect everything. Like, did I move the needle in everything that I do aligned to that purpose, or did I not? And then plan for the next quarter to say what needs to stay and what does just need to fall off the plate because it's not serving that purpose anymore. And that's okay. I mean, life changes, right? And things evolve. So now I'm more intentional about carving that space and that time in my calendar, both weekly and then on a quarterly basis. Because if not, what ends up happening is, I mean, we've already gone through 2 years of COVID, and that, I think, showcases how fast time really goes. So if you don't take those moments, again, another 2 years are going to go by, and then another 2 years are going to go by. So now I've carved those spaces.
And I was going to ask you that question, and it's appropriate now. Would you mind articulating your purpose and your meaning?
Absolutely. It's all about elevating and empowering other people, but it is specifically Hispanic women to reach their extraordinary selves, whatever that means to them. That's what everything that I do in some way or form is to help in that mission and that purpose.
Excellent. That's great to hear that. And Angela, have you found one of these three phrases resonates with you the most?
All right. I think you had a hard time hearing me. How about now?
Yeah, that's better. So I'm asking, living your life purposely, or discovering meaning in your life, or starting to live a genuine life. which of those three seem to resonate the best with you?
So all three resonate with me very much so, Cliff, because they're all, in my opinion, interconnected. When we make the choice at some point in our lives to live more genuinely and really take full responsibility of our own lives, in other words, stop pointing the finger outwards and really start pointing it to ourselves, we end up being more mindful and more self-aware of what's going on in our lives. And this, in turn, in my humble opinion, empowers us to see the interconnectivity and the fullness of life. And so let's say an example, like what does that mean, right? An example, let's take as a parent, I'm a parent, I have a child that's rowdy and this is really distressing me as an example. Taking full responsibility in this situation means really analyzing what am I doing to contribute to this, dysfunction with this child, and what is really this child reacting to, right? So perhaps in my analysis, the child needs more attention from me. Perhaps there's an issue that I haven't discovered. An example, like the child is so rowdy that it annoys me, for example. And it's like, oh no, like I'm internally disturbed. So I have to really like think about, oh, I need to own this situation, right?
Mhm.
So that's an example of like everyday life and how we can own things. But when we eventually get there and identify the things that we should be changing for our own personal growth, then we can start tweaking the levers in our own personal lives. So, after some time of this inner work, we can more clearly identify our purpose and tackle this game of life.
So, women that are hearing your story today or hear it in the future when they look back at this podcast, what would you want to recommend to them who are women that are uh, on the road to success or struggling to be successful? What words of advice regarding being genuine and living a purposeful life would you suggest giving them?
Um, so, Cliff, a lot of our hindrances personally, I believe they're rooted in a lot of our past experiences. So
Mhm,
the number one thing I would say is forget the past. Start with a clean slate
mhm,
and just really and truly identify what are my strengths and what are the things that I really need to work on.
mhm,
And the things that we need to work on, there's usually some kind of symptoms in our lives to tell us like, oh, this is not going too well. You need to work on this thing, right? So the very first thing I would say, Cliff, is just really give yourself that clean slate of it
mhm.
doesn't matter how many failures you have in the past. It doesn't matter what your parents did or how you reacted to this other person. Start from the now, today, and
Mhm.
just forward. What are you going to do to empower yourself and be better?
And that's good advice because if folks are thinking about the things that they're good at and can help them be successful, that's a positive. But at the same time, you're also thinking about what should I be improving? And then you have that nice little balance where you're able to say, okay, I've got to improve on that, but I can still make myself feel a little bit better because I'm really good at this. So that's good advice. Thank you. That's great. Um, it's lonely at the top for female leaders today. Surveys have shown statistically that there's not a lot of, or not enough women at the top working side by side with men leaders. Women have also said that when they are at the top, it's lonely because it's hard for them to talk about their personal life. It hasn't been widely accepted for doing so. There's lots of other different pieces of data, and these are barriers that that women have to face every day in the workplace. Can you share with us, Angela, some experiences that you've had where you have felt a barrier and that you had to overcome? And then also, is there a recommendation that you could give to employers today to make a change?
Certainly, Cliff. I'm going to take a different route to this question. Because as a female Latina growing up in an underprivileged neighborhood, South Bronx in the 90s, with zero, social capital, I want to say that for me, being a female and being Latina made, this is just my mind, the way I think and how I feel. It made a zero impact on how I handle myself in school, my jobs, my career, and now running my startup. Yes, there is bias, discrimination, unfair practices running rampant everywhere, right? And the stats don't lie. Female Latinas do not have it nicely paved in society. But I discovered early on, Cliff, that we can only impact and change the things that we can control. I can't control how others perceive me. I can't control what they think of female leaders or what they think of Latinas. I cannot devote that energy on how the world is unfair. I just don't have that extra bandwidth for these, I guess, macro inequities. But I can devote tons of time in how Pixie culture is inclusive and supportive of all. And so I guess with that said, if we all do our own part, being self-aware, having empathy for your fellow human beings, however shape, color, or creed they come in, and then fostering kindness and positivity around us, many of these issues, including the one that you just mentioned, Cliff, in the workplace and also around us, could be ameliorated much quicker.
I agree, and you're right. Sometimes it's important to take on the whole issue and try and get it changed. But a lot of times, leading by example is just as valuable, and that's really what I think you're doing with Pixie. You're showing how an organization should interact and how to be a good human being. What about you? Oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to, last tidbit, Cliff, for the organizations that grapple with, the inequalities within the organization, it's a cultural thing within the company. So there needs to just be tough conversations about what is fair, what isn't fair, and what can be tolerated and what cannot be tolerated. Children, I have children and they're young, and they talk about acceptable behavior and not acceptable behavior, right? So it just going back to basics is really where the answer lies, in my opinion.
Thank you. Ilyana, in your experiences through your work life, can you share some barriers that you have experienced and some recommendations that you have for companies to consider for change?
Absolutely, and I have to agree with everything that Angela said. I think it's important to focus on the things that you can control and not on the things that you can't control, or you make them, personal, and then you control and do something about it, right? But you're absolutely right, and that's, I think, a lot of the work focused on a lot of the work that I do, both with my clients and with the organizations and the companies that I serve. In terms of, I talk about 3 pillars specifically. One has to do with embracing who we are, which Angela talked about, really recognizing what are our strengths, what's the value that we bring to the table, what are our talents. All of us bring incredible wealth of experience, expertise, knowledge, perspective, and as women, we need to embrace that, truly, recognize it first, because sometimes we don't recognize it, but go through that process of recognizing it and then embracing it. Because if we don't believe in ourselves, if we do not know what that value is that we bring, then it's going to be very hard for others to recognize it. So it starts with the us, or with ourselves. And then the second has to do with advocating for ourselves, right? Elevating our voice and letting other people know that value that we bring. If not, we can be extraordinary. We can be the best, but if nobody knows, then we become the world's best kept secret. And then that serves absolutely no one. So the second has to do with self-advocacy, and learning how to do that with confidence, because a lot of women, and especially Latina women, right? Like, we feel that we're bragging, or people are going to, judge us or look at us in some weird way or form, which again is a barrier. But if we embrace who we are, then we stand up strong, and we're able to then advocate for ourselves in an authentic way, and it doesn't come across as judgy, or it doesn't come across as braggy or anything. It's just recognizing and letting other people know how we can help them, and how we can positively impact their lives, or their organizations, their teams, their companies, whatever it is. And the third pillar has to do with building our strategic network. We are all awesome individuals that can do a lot on our own, but I say that we can do significantly more together. And we have to learn to, build those that network of women and allies, and just people that will be there to advocate for you, to sponsor you, to support you, to mentor you, to just be a cheerleader that day that you woke up and you're like, I just can't do it anymore, and then they'll just be there like cheering you on. You can do it. And we're not intentional in building that network of, like I said, women or people around you that will have your back, so that you can continue on. So those three are always the things that I recommend, and I work with everybody. And in terms of the organizations, it's the same thing. It's helping. It's for organizations to build those platforms of mentorship, of sponsorship, of advocacy, so that women feel safe in those spaces, to be able to first understand who they are, that what they're doing is meaningful and impactful, to be able to trust each other and not feel like somebody's going to stab, a knife on my back. So it is important that spaces for women to be able to advocate for themselves, in a way that they feel comfortable, right? So if they follow those pillars, then they'll definitely help in overcoming those barriers that are going to happen, because we're humans, and those preconceptions and misconceptions and biases just naturally happen, and we just need, like Angela says, to accept that they're there. But if we're intentional about these, focusing on these three things, then we'll definitely provide women the tools and the platforms for them to feel that they can then have the ability to overcome whatever is faced in front of them.
And I think change is difficult. You're talking about your three pillars to help folks feel comfortable about being who they are, and leading and being successful. Angela spoke about leading by example. People say that change needs to come from the top. But what do you folks think about managers in the organizations? Essentially, think of them as being a linchpin to helping move fair and equitable workplaces forward. What do you think about that, Ilyana?
It's important, right? It's critical. There's a saying out there that says that people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. And that is
Yes.
so true. I mean, you can have an extraordinary company that has, great values and a great organization overall, but if the boss is not a good manager or a good boss,
Mhm.
like people are going to leave. And same thing the other way. If you have a couple of great bosses that care for their staff, even though the company might not in general be a good place, that people will still be there. So you're absolutely right in terms of managers being a critical component to build these cultures, build these spaces, and therefore be able to provide and enable fair and equitable workplaces. And the thing that I when I talk to my clients, that I just ask them to rethink something, rethink their how they train and how they support their managers, is this: when somebody new coming out of college starts their first job or their second job, like they're very early in the career, right? We onboard them, we provide them the training so that they can develop their skills, because although they're very good at something, they still need to learn the process or the things that they're doing for what they were hired. So we go through an hopefully a good onboarding and set of trainings for them to be able to execute that role that they've been hired to do. But once somebody gets promoted to managers, there is no training. It's just like throwing somebody into a pool and hoping that they
Yes,
can swim and
exactly.
assuming that they know how to be a manager. But the reality is, people and companies need to understand that when you move from individual contributor to a manager, your role changes in terms of you're already expert in doing whatever execution and tactical things you did. And now your role is about the people. You're moving from task to people,
Mhm.
right? And that requires a completely different set of skills that you may be really good at or you might not, right? Like communication, like emotional intelligence, like many of these people skills. That's why they're called people skills. And the ideal world, it would be like starting all over again. You would need, as a company, to provide your managers with an onboarding and a training and support to be able to then develop those new skills that are required to be able to manage people. Because they're already experts in whatever task was done before, right? That's why they got promoted. So it is very important to shift that mindset to, you're great at what you were doing from an execution standpoint and a task standpoint. Now it's supporting managers to develop those new skills as managers, to focus on people and being able to enable their teams to to empower them and support them and be there for them and remove any barriers that they might have. It's not about the task, it's about the people. So yes, critically important to focus on the managers.
And I think what's also really important is that the surveys this year have shown significant shift, and maybe people being more vocal about why they did leave their jobs versus before they were saying, I left my job because I just needed to make more money or the commute was bad or something like that, and weren't really honest about their managers. And the surveys this year are showing that people are leaving because of their managers. And it is an opportunity for managers to learn that skill, the people skill, like you're speaking about. And it's also the people skill to allow women to have the same opportunities that everybody else does. So I think you're spot on there. And Angela, you probably have a lot of insight into this
Sorry,
as
can
you're.
I just add one more piece of
Yeah.
data because this was for me like mind blowing. McKinsey or Gallup, I can't remember which one, or one of these also conducted, they conduct a lot of research, and they conducted a research with I don't know how many thousands of managers and all levels as leaders, and they asked them a set of like, these are the competencies that are required to be great leaders. Where do you stand? And 80% of them self-assess themselves as great leaders, as having all of those competencies and recognizing themselves as, I'm a good leader because I do all of these things. 80%. And then they did another study with people talking about their leaders, and if they believed that their leaders, satisfied all of those different things, and only 18% said that their leaders, their managers, really satisfied or all of those skills. That means that there's 60% of leaders that think that they're good leaders, they're not good, that their teams believe they're not good leaders. Like, that's a huge number. So it taps onto what you were saying, Cliff.
I'll give you a big number too, Ilyana. Your insights are amazing. Thank you for sharing them. And I'm going to back them up with a SHRM like a study that they made. I don't know how many companies were involved, but it was a pretty involved study. And over the course of 5 years, they determined that companies lose on average $223 billion in just lost money over toxic workplaces. And the toxicity they found is led by managers, frontline managers, and poor communication skills. So those two, I guess, components made up for the bulk of, the toxicity in the workplace. And so, yes, Cliff, managers are really the gatekeepers of culture in the organization. And they're super vital and a huge factor in determining the team's overall performance and cohesiveness, right? So to Eliana's point, and to yours as well, I believe organizations are now, just with the great resignation and all these trends happening, beginning to realize and come to reckon with the fact that we have to focus more time to develop and give more attention to our people managers. So in my experience working at corporate for 10 years, I can completely agree with what you mentioned, Cliff. I personally was very fortunate with working with amazing managers at John Hancock. And I felt super supported all the time, acknowledged, and I really did feel like I belonged there. Make no mistake, I earned that privilege, that rank within my peers. But it is truly an amazing and wonderful thing when your output is met with open arms at the other end, and you want to give more as a contributor in a company. So in my experience, when managers do embrace their employees and they do have the right skill sets or soft skills for their position, it just empowers the team, and it also empowers the organization as well.
Excellent. I completely agree. And this has all been very, very good snippets of advice and support for women who are trying to make it somewhere in whatever role that they're in. I wanted to leave the conversation with maybe a last piece of advice that each of you could share with folks who are watching the podcast, maybe from the perspective of your secret word or sauce or something that allows you to be successful. It could be something you might have learned or got inspiration from a long time ago. Could be anything. If there's one thing that you could share that people can take away from today, as empowered women like yourself, what would it be that you'd like to share with the audience?
I'll go first, Ilyana. So Cliff, when we started this brainstorming this session, we mentioned, how can we infuse Spanish? And because,
Yes.
part of the Hispanic and Latino culture is that Spanish speaking, which is effectively the web that connects all of the cultures together, the language. So I'm going to say it in my message in Spanish, and then I can translate it as well, if that's okay with you guys.
Definitely. That's awesome.
Awesome. So for those in the audience that can understand Spanish, la gente latina, por lo general, tiene mucha energía, mucha pasión y mucho amor a la vida. Esas son cualidades que son muy excelentes, pero como mujeres en la cultura latina pensamos que nuestra energía, nuestra pasión y nuestro amor se lo tenemos que dar, y algunas veces por completo, a nuestra familia, a nuestras amistades y a nuestras parejas. Y no es así. Todos nacimos solos y no vamos de esta tierra solos. Entonces, tenemos que dedicarle un tiempo y reservar la energía y pasión y amor para nosotras mismas. No en una manera egoísta ni self-absorbed, pero en una manera que nos ayuda a fortalecernos internamente. Desde ahí nace la autoestima, el valor y la confianza para conquistar los dilemas de la vida como vengan. So in English, I effectively said that Hispanic people have a lot of energy, are very passionate, and have a lot of love for life. And these are all qualities that are very excellent. And as women, Hispanic women, our culture really encourages us to give all that goodness away, specifically to our families, to our friends, and to our partners as well. And I encourage women to rethink this, because we were born by ourselves and we leave Earth by ourselves. So we have to dedicate some of that, reserve some of that energy for ourselves, and not in a egotistical or self-absorbed way, but in a matter that really empowers us and fortifies us internally, so that we can use that power to have the self-esteem, the courage, and also the confidence to conquer everyday, obstacles.
Great words of advice. Thank you so much, Angela. Ilyana, how do you want to attack this?
Well, I just want to say hi to Sam, that he can say that in Arabic too. So thank you, Sam. I love what you're saying, Angela. And somebody once said to me, it's not about being selfish, it's about being selfless. So absolutely. For me, I would say the thing that, drives me, well, there's a lot of things that drive me, but the one that I do the most is, I ask myself, I try to do it on a daily basis. I have to say I don't do it on a daily basis, but I try, is to think about what extraordinary thing that did I do for myself today, and what extraordinary thing that I do for somebody else today. And that's what drives me. That's what helps me, again, focus on keep pushing myself to do things that get me out of my comfort zone, right? Because that's the way to grow. That's the way to keep, being fulfilled and feeling that you created impact. So extraordinary has been, you talked about a word, extraordinary has been a word that now for many, many years has driven me, because it means a lot of things to me and to the work that I want to do with others. And in a way, the other thing is you're not alone. Like you can tap into others to help you, right, on this journey. You you don't have to feel sometimes that you have to come up with all of the answers, especially as you rise as a woman and leader to the top. It sometimes feels that you need to like put that smile and superpower pose and have all the answers, right? Yes, absolutely. And then inside you're like, oh my God, like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, right? And that's a big weight on our shoulders that keeps like pushing us down. And you don't have to feel that way. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, I don't have the answers. I don't have an idea what what I'm doing. Can somebody help? It is okay to do that and to be a little bit, like Angela says, compassionate about ourselves and caring for ourselves and saying, you know what, we got it. You're okay. So lean on others, really do, because if not, it can hinder your health and your mental health, and your mental health in a lot of different ways. So those are my tips.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You both are very powerful women and successful, and thank you so much for being here today. I would like to know if you can share a superpower that you might have to get you to where you are today, and leave the audience with Angela's superpower and Ilyana's superpower.
My superpower is grit, just tenacity and not giving up. Combined with like that long-term view of just keep going and don't stop.
Awesome. Ilyana.
For me, I would say it's empathy. I recognize that I'm a highly empathetic person, which is very good because I can, be in tune with others, but sometimes it can also not be helpful to me because sometimes I then take on others' emotions and things, and I take them as my own. So I need to find find balance. And if you allow me, Cliff, because I want to make sure that I just quickly answer Sam's question in the chat about if finding a little bit challenging when you're more successful than your partner. I do have to say that I am the primary breadwinner of my house. I've been that forever, for the last 23 years that I've been married to my wonderful husband. But I still don't see myself as being more successful than him. This has been a journey that we've embarked together, where he's been successful as a stay-at-home dad and in raising our two wonderful kids, which has been a challenge in itself. And the fact that he's had my back all these years is what led me to do what I can do as a professional woman. And I would not have done it without him being there. And I appreciate that every day. So I just wanted to touch on that comment.
And if I may add to that as well, Ilyana, because I am in business with my husband, there's that dynamic as well, right? And it really comes down to how we both in the partnership define success, and what success looks like for him versus myself, and are we both in that same mindset to empower each other? Because when it becomes competitive, that's when we start getting, a little nicky-nacky with things. But the whole teamwork and the partnership has to come first for it to kind of go smoothly.
Excellent. Well, I'm learning that we're running out of time, so thank you very, very much. I really appreciate both of you taking your time to share your stories today and your rise to success. And it was wonderful to learn a lot about you. And I wish you the best of luck going forward. I know lots of good news is on its way for Angela and Pixie, and the same with Be Live. So thank you both very much, and wish you all a good rest of the day.
Have a good one.
Thanks so much, Cliff.
You're welcome. Thank you, folks.